Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the Tech Startup Show. In this episode, I speak to Arvid Kahl, an awesome entrepreneur, author, and former software engineer. He sold his SaaS business and now makes it his mission to empower other entrepreneurs around the world. We talk about building in public, imposter syndrome, negativity bias, and so much more. So let's get into it. Firstly, Arvid, thank you so much for your time. It's such an honor to have you on the show. For those who don't know you already, do you want to just tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on. Where to start? I think right now the best description that I can give of who I am, where I am, and what I do is that I used to be a software engineer. And then I upgraded to being a software engineer that's also an entrepreneur. And then from that, I upgraded to writing about my journey as an entrepreneur that used to be a software engineer. It's kind of the whole cycle. And I'm very active on Twitter. I just recently released a Twitter course on teaching people how to be themselves on Twitter and still be successful. Like having an empathy first kind of approach to Twitter. That's what I've been focusing a lot on because I've been building a sizable audience through direct engagement and just having a lot of fun with people, being myself, being who I want to be on Twitter. And I wrote a couple books about my entrepreneurial journey that led me to this because they helped me build the credibility that allowed me to then build the following. It's all very interconnected in my career, which is why I'm having such a hard time even expressing the journey because everything seems to fall into place. But I used to be a salaried, employed, regular software engineer at some point, heavy into JavaScript and Elixir, like functional programming, and have a lot of experience with SaaS businesses. The SaaS business that I actually co-founded with my girlfriend and then later sold in 2019 is the reason why I now have so much time on my hands, because selling the business really gave me a lot of stability and opportunity. And ever since then, I've just been sharing what I know with the people that I'd like to help. And that is founders on the internet, essentially. It's kind of, I think, a pretty weird, but the shortest version I could get to about who I am and what I do.
Yeah, I mean, that is so awesome. I love your Twitter, all the amazing content you produce. And I recently started your course on Skillshare, and I have to say it's
Oh.
absolutely incredible. There's so much valuable content about creating an amazing audience. I just want to ask you, what are the top few projects you're working on at the moment? I mean, you've got your books that you've done, and you've got your course you recently launched. What else are you working on at the moment?
It actually gives me a really, really good opportunity to just introduce you and everybody listening to just my approach to working, because the question itself is quite hard for me to answer because I don't have tangible things that I'm actually working on, but I know that with everything I do, I'm working towards something. It feels like I spend most of my time thinking and writing. That's kind of the biggest thing that I do. And every week I want to write at least one article that I then put on my podcast, and I put it in my newsletter, and I put it on my blog, like one thing that is meaningful and substantial that people can learn from. But the topics for that, they're pretty random. I source them from all kinds of conversations that I have during each week. So whenever you see me writing about something, you can be pretty sure that during the week or the week prior to that, I just had a conversation where this came up. So that's kind of where I source the information, because I want to be where people are right now. I also want to be there, right? If some people are talking about, I don't know, purchasing power parity pricing, which I found a couple weeks ago, I talk about it, and then I even implemented it for my own stuff. But I want to talk about the things that people are currently engaging with, currently having conversations about. That's also what I teach. I'm trying to, talk the talk and walk the walk at the same time. And my content, the thing that I'm working on, is a consequence of that. So with each week, I'm trying to just increase the amount of themes and topics that I am thinking about and that I'm working on, so that eventually a thing like my course can just happen, because it wasn't really intentional. I didn't really set out to make a course. I set out to write more about building in public and to think more about building an audience and doing this from an empathetic and people first kind of perspective. And then I noticed, oh yeah, I've been writing so much about this. If I just pull this together, this could be like a little lesson. This could be part of a bigger thing. Initially, I wanted to write a book. And I still kind of am thinking about writing a book about building in public because I've just been talking so much about it because I've been doing it. The last book I wrote, called The Embedded Entrepreneur, is a book that I wrote in public with my audience. So I really enjoyed that and the process of it. And now I'm trying to teach both that process to other people and to use it again for whatever thing I want to do next. Like I said, it's very convoluted because I don't really have these straightforward goals. I just have directions in which I want to go. So everything I do is a potential little avenue into maybe the next thing. It's an experiment to see, do I want to keep doing this? It's kind of how I approach Twitter. Whenever I write a tweet, I consider this to be like the little seed for an article that I might write about the next week. Maybe for a guide that article turns into by just expanding it to cover multiple different topics. And then maybe that turns into a book or course or some other kind of thing. So I always try to just push out as many experiments as I can and then take the ones that actually seem to resonate with people and turn them into more productized, monetizable things. Maybe in the end, I don't really care about it too much. I have had a lot of opportunity to do this, but I've only done it thrice so far, right? With two books and the course. I just want to see what's interesting because now that we sold the business for what I'm allowed to say is a life-changing amount of money, it's the legal limit of what I can talk to. Now that we are in this situation, I spend most of my time doing whatever I want to do, which is the ultimate freedom. It's a wonderful situation to be in, but it's also kind of limiting because nobody tells you what you should be doing, right? There's no boss if you're your own boss. And both controlling what you're doing and doing it, it's a complicated balance to strike. So I'm just doing a lot of experimentation, trying to find the things that really, really make me want to do more. And that's what I'm working on. Every week, something else until I find something like this build in public theme that then turns into a month of work, of concentrated work to create a product that people can actually derive, hopefully a lot, and likely at least some meaning from. And that's my approach to working in general. I call this just an expansion of my opportunity surface. Whenever I do something, it gives me the higher potential in the future for an opportunity to strike that particular surface. So I just try to make the surface bigger and bigger so that the opportunities that strike hit the surface and I can leverage them into something cool. That's my approach to working.
Yeah, I mean, that is so amazing and interesting. You talk about building in public, and I see you're a huge advocate for that on Twitter and everything. What exactly is it for people who don't know, and why should people be building in public?
There is probably there are lots of different definitions because different people do it in different ways, but my approach to building in public is you're essentially sharing your entrepreneurial journey and the journey of you as a founder and the journey of the product that you're building as an imperfect thing becoming better over time. And you do that by reporting and sharing little improvements, little successes, little failures, little decision-making processes, everything that has to do with you, your product or your business on a medium like Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, any kind of social media where people are able to follow your journey. That's really what it is. You share your entrepreneurial journey with all the ups and downs. You share it from an authentic human perspective, because otherwise you're essentially doing marketing in public, which most marketing is, right? People just talk about the good stuff, talk about the advantages that a thing has for you if you only buy it. And that's perfectly fine. Marketing is a great approach to making people aware of your product, but building in public has the added component of you building a personal brand about you as a competent person in your field of expertise, while you're also building a business that people invest in because it's part of a journey. It's part of a narrative. Building in public is mostly establishing a cohesive and consistent narrative over time. Some people, one of the examples that I give in the course, and you probably know that having gone through the course, is Noah Bragg. Noah has been building a tool called Potion, which is a website builder for Notion. Notion itself is a documentation tool, right? A note-taking tool. And you can take certain pages and just turn it into websites. That's his project. That's what Noah built, called Potion. And he starts his journey by just really tweeting about, hey, I'm going to build something cool. I'm going to tell you tomorrow. And then the next day, to his a couple hundred, it must have been 1,000 Twitter followers at the time that he had, because he already has a podcast and has been building projects, software projects on Twitter, not really in public, but he's been talking a little bit about it. And then he announces the next day, that must have been like a year ago or something. It's gonna be called Potion. It's gonna be a Notion 2 website builder, and I'm gonna build it in public. And yeah, he had 1,000 followers the one day, and the next day when he announced that, he had 2,000 followers because people were just so excited, not because they really need a website builder for Notion. That's not the reason people followed Noah at that point, but they were so excited to be promised this journey, right? Somebody's going to build a whole business and I'm going to be there from day one. Oh, I'm going to follow that guy. That's just the excitement that you can channel onto your personal brand, into your community, your following, by just building in public from the very first day. Because then he just starts sharing updates. Okay, I built this feature today, or I was thinking about my financial situation, how I can improve that so I can build this business. Every day he's been consistently putting new information about his journey out there. And he's, I don't know how many thousand followers he has, but he's probably in the two digits, like 15, 16,000 at this point, I hope, or at least 10ish. You know, like, he's been amassing a group of people that is really, really excited about Noah, about Noah's business, and about the product that he's been building, because they were involved and they invested their emotional energy, their motivational energy into his journey. They love the narrative. They love to be part of it. Some people, like, were literally part of the narrative, because the moment Noah started sharing his journey, he invited other people in to come and contribute. Like, he posted about something on his website, and then two people chimed in and they said, okay, there's a textual error, there's a grammatical error there, you need to fix that, you need to fix that. And then he did, and all of a sudden those people are characters in the story because they made it better, and people from the outside could see them as benign, helpful people in his story. It's just humans, that's how humans tick. And that building in public leverages this kind of narrative to an extent that people will follow you even if you fail. Like, if Noah's project should ever fail, what do you think? His 10,000 followers are just going to go away? No, they follow him for him. They follow him because he is awesome at sharing and teaching online about a thing that other people also want to do, build amazing businesses. Like, if Potion should fail and Noah's going to just announce his next project, nobody's going to unfollow. Even more people are going to follow. And he has this group of thousands of people that are willing to give him a chance, to support him, to invite their peers, to invite their friends to try this new thing. It's an incredibly powerful thing to build in public. And if you're not doing this, if you're building in private because you think, oh, people are going to steal my ideas and stuff, well, then you're missing out on what is maybe the most efficient way of getting investment. And I mean this in an emotional, supportive kind of sense, or maybe actual money. Like, by being in public, people get to see you. And this could be an investor, a potential partner, a potential co-founder, a potential customer. It could be, you don't know. That's why you put yourself out there, because you're increasing your opportunity surface for yourself and your business. So that's what building in public is for me. And you've probably noticed that I really enjoy it, and that I want as many people as possible to do it, because it's just such a powerful tool for a founder. And most self-funded founders who are using their own money, they really need to make every step count. And building in public allows you to do this, because you have people around you that will help you if you need them. You're not going to be alone in your basement. I mean, I am currently in my basement, and I am alone in my basement, but I know that I have 50,000 people on Twitter who would support me if I needed to. You know, that's the difference. And that's why it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something I've sort of been struggling with recently is it ever too early to launch a product? Because building in public, I guess, I mean, you launch from day one, I guess, because you're getting feedback and you're getting all of this positive encouragement from your audience. But is there ever a point where launching too early has the risk of turning some customers away because the product's just not ready yet, and it's not quite good enough to attract enough people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, there is no silver bullet for anything, particularly not in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, just by definition, is risk, right? It's a risky move to build something that nobody has ever built before, because you don't know if people haven't tried it yet because they haven't thought about it yet, or if they tried and failed, or, you know, like, there's all different kinds of scenarios, and you trying your own personal interpretation of something new, that is just a lot of risk in there. And depending on who you sell to, like if you sell to established enterprise businesses, then you might want to wait a bit until you have smaller businesses as actual customers for your business before you really start sharing the ins and outs. But maybe you are in an industry that may have big players, but has a lot of small players that would love to find somebody who actually helps them instead of the big guys, right? Maybe you can only find that out by being in public, by building in public, by actually having those conversations instead of having all these assumptions about the market in your mind. So it never hurts for you to be in public, right? The building in public part, like the level to which you share certain things about your business, first off, it's all your choice how much you share and how much you don't share, right? Some businesses happen in industries where there's a lot of secrecy. I was recently talking to a person working in the cybersecurity space, and that is by definition a very secretive space, and a space that's very quite not too fond of authority, because there's always a bit of a like a Wild West mentality when it comes to, you know, hacking and infosec and stuff. And I really appreciate that coming from that background kind of as well. I understand how people think. So if you are too open, you come off as somebody who doesn't understand the industry, right? You're trying to maybe you're trying to share that you are a trustworthy person, but in an industry that values some kind of nebulousness around certain topics, you need to adapt to that. You need to adopt these measures and really, yeah, be compatible with the people that you want to serve. And then there are particular fields and industries like the indie hacker scene or the software engineering scene, where it's perfectly fine to be as open as you want to be, where people actually expect that. Particularly people from the open source community, they have a pretty strong transparency demand of any new business that they want to interact with, because they're just used to having introspection into source code and all that kind of stuff. So it really depends on who you're serving. And also, like I said, what kind of businesses you try to reach. If you reach people just like you, that are just a couple of weeks behind you, in the sense of, you know, you build a little business that helps other little businesses, perfectly fine to build in public from day one, even like pre-idea. You could be in a community and just give them the opportunity to talk to you about any problem they have. You might be able to solve it, right? You don't need to build the idea you already have. You can come up with the idea in public by just observing a community. And that's the whole point of my second book, The Embedded Entrepreneur, is to go into a community, embed yourself, listen, observe, and then later get your idea, find out what people actually need help with. So it really depends on the audience that you're serving. But if you're trying to sell a software product to Microsoft or to, I don't know, Salesforce or something, like anything for their team building exercises or stuff like that, you need to be very clear about what expectations your potential future customers have, not just of the product, but also of the business and how it just behaves in the public sphere. So building in public, maybe as an aside here, that's very important though. Building in public is a tool of many, right? Like stealth building is also a tool. Like semi building in public, like sharing the journey but not really sharing the specifics, also a tool. Not building in public at all, perfect tool. Like we use tools that get us from A to B. And if building in public is not for you in your industry, use something else. You're not limited to building in public. It's not a religion, and I don't want it to be, because it's, you know, you get all these weird purity problems with that. Like this is not in public enough. Who's to say, right? If you have a business that benefits from being a little bit in public but not too much, and most businesses turn out to reduce their building in public at intensity at some point, because people start imitating them. People start cloning their businesses because there's just too much information out there. You know, there's always a risk that if you overshare, you give people free knowledge that they can leverage to build their own thing. And then later at some point notice that it's not all in the free knowledge that they got. They still have to learn and understand the market, and they still have to build a unique product. You know, copycats are not that big of a problem, but if you overshare, you make it easier for people to at least try. So there's always this kind of balance between, I want to share so I could teach people in public. I also want to keep certain things to myself because I need a moat around my business. In many ways, when you build in public, you become the moat as the founder, as the personal brand, right? You are the person that attracts so much goodwill. You're the person that people trust. and so is your business at some point a trustworthy thing in your community compared to other people who people don't trust yet. They can build the same thing, but maybe people are not going to be customers of that business too quickly because they don't trust the builder. Again, completely depends on your industry, but I would say yes, there are definitely spaces in which building in public is not optimal. You can still try it. Maybe it's just an attempt that people are actually waiting for. Maybe people want you to try in a space like that. But there are definitely spaces that are more and spaces that are less compatible with the whole approach.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great answer. That was going to be my next question. How do you strike the balance between sharing too much and not sharing enough? So my next question is about imposter syndrome, one of the biggest problems out there. I recently listened to your podcast on being imperfect in public, and I loved your idea that the uncomfortable nature of imposter syndrome allows you to really grow. So instead of being afraid of imposter syndrome, we should actively embrace it. Could you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is the feeling of, just for definition's sake, so people know what it is, in case they are this rare, unique person that never felt imposter syndrome before. But it's that feeling of ooh, am I the right person to do this? Or I don't think I'm qualified enough to do this. Right? That's the feeling that we always get when we do something uncomfortable, when we leave our comfort zone and do something that we may not be like perfectly qualified for, like apply to a job that we don't have all the qualifications for, or build something that we don't think we could perfectly build at the first try. Particularly software engineers will understand this. Like if you try to build a platform in a new programming language that you've never really built something big in, you can always feel like, am I in over my head? And then a couple of weeks later, you figure out, yeah, it's just like any other thing I've always used before. It's just the syntax slightly different, functions, signatures are slightly different, and the build step is like weird. But there's really no difference. You can do it because you're capable of learning and you're capable of overcoming these little differences between what you already know and what you want to accomplish. So imposter syndrome is the feeling of not being able to do this for some weird internal reason. And that's one of the things that I noticed in my life. I felt this a lot. And I still, to this day, feel it. Even now, when I talk about it, I feel, am I really qualified to talk about this? Which is bizarre, right? Because obviously I feel it. I know what it is, but you have this voice in the back of your mind that tells you change is dangerous. And I think it's just a human thing, because anything that is not like what we already know is a potential danger. And we have this voice in our head to protect us from any potential danger, even if the potential danger comes with a much bigger upside, with a much bigger benefit, right? Like doing something that you all of a sudden you learn it and then you can do so much more, but the learning process might be dangerous. This voice is not very reasonable because it's a very basic, it's a very primal thing that protects us from too much change around us. But we live in a pretty safe world, most of us do at least, that learning a new programming language is not a dangerous thing, or trying to write an article for the first time. What's going to happen? Nobody's going to read it. Why is that dangerous? Right? We come up with all these scenarios in our minds why that would be difficult and complicated and dangerous, but they're really just slight nuisances that our mind overinflates into gigantic fears. And that's what imposter syndrome is, this kind of overinflation of mini risks that our mind tells us, and that really aren't that bad of a problem. So one thing that came to my mind, and I don't think I actually put that in the article that you referenced, but I put it into the one that I wrote a couple of weeks ago on negativity and building in public, is that I learned at some point by reading a pretty esoteric book, I don't recall what it was, that that voice in our mind that tells us these things, that is not me. That is the person that's actually listening to the voice. And ever since I understood that in this dialogue of internal voice and internal listener, myself, my who I am, is not the voice. It's never the voice. It's always the thing or the person listening. That made it so much easier to ignore the voice, because the voice is some part of my mind. There are other parts that tell me other cool things. Like when I wake up and I look in the mirror and there's a voice telling me, hey, you're great. that is also not me. It's a cool part of me, but it's just a voice, right? That's my ego talking. That's my self-awareness, or my willingness to celebrate myself talking, whatever it is. These two voices, the bad one and the good one, they're both not me. But what is me is the thing that's listening. And I control what I'm listening to. Again, the voice in the mirror, that one I listen to. The back of the mind, imposter syndrome one, I don't listen to much. It still is loud sometimes, but I tune it out. Because, like you said, whenever you feel imposter syndrome, it is because you are in a place of discomfort. And when you leave your comfort zone, by definition, you get into the discomfort zone, because that's the one that surrounds it, right? Comfort zone is the stuff you already know, the things you've always done, the same way that you can do you can blindfolded, you can do it you know in your sleep. But the moment you go into your discomfort zone, you're on new terrain, you're on new ground, you don't really know where to go, you don't know what stuff is happening, and if if you're defended enough, if you're doing it right, if you're doing it wrong, there's a lot of ifs and whats and doubts there. And this feeling of discomfort is the precursor to growth. It's quite literally one step away, mental step away, so it's figuratively a step away from you actually growing. Because the feeling of discomfort means here's something that once you learn it, is going to expand your comfort zone. It's going to expand your zone of knowledge, your skill set, your capabilities. And that is what growth is about. It's literally an expansion of all these things. So when I feel discomfort, when I talk about something that I don't really think I know too much about, well, I don't stop. I just go and research, so I know more about it, and then I grow. When somebody asks me a question that I don't have a perfect answer to because I haven't responded to it before, I don't try to answer a different question. I think about how I can extrapolate new knowledge from what I already know and go into another place, so that now, next time somebody asks me about this question, I have an answer for them, right? It's always finding an opportunity to grow is what drives me, why I get up in the morning. So if I see discomfort, I actually go there. Okay, this is nice. I'm gonna learn something today, for good or bad, right? Sometimes you mess up, sometimes it doesn't work out, and you give a really, really stupid answer to an actually good question. All right, let's try again, because I just, it's just one time that you mess up, and then you have another chance. It's not that it's our mind plays this trick on us that we think anything negative is super problematic. It's this negativity bias, right? We remember negative events much stronger than we remember the good events. Just, remember back like your school days, you probably will find more negative events, like socially awkward and embarrassment-based events in memory than the great times where you had a lot of fun, where you learned something. Those things are there too, but they're not as dominant in your mind, because we have this loss aversion problem that our mind is so capably turning into a bias to help us. But in many ways, it doesn't help us, that we focus so much on negativity. So yeah, flip the coin. Consider the imposter syndrome not to be a negative thing, but a sign of growth to come. And that makes it so much easier. Finally, one last thing. Sorry for just turning this into a gigantic monologue, but when I first heard the term imposter syndrome and I read about it, it was in an article by Anne-Laure Lecomte, and she wrote this wonderful phrase saying that only real imposters never feel imposter syndrome, because they know they're imposters. Like, only if you know you're an imposter will you never feel it. So, if you invert that, if you're not an imposter, you will feel an imposter syndrome, and flip that around. If you feel imposter syndrome, you're not an imposter. You're just somebody learning. It's just somebody growing. And I really like that, because it makes it easy to judo your mind from, haha, gotcha, then it's gone. It'll never really be gone, I can tell you that. Like, I felt imposter syndrome when I built a business. I felt imposter syndrome when I sold a business. What is that? Selling a business? Nobody ever does that. I have no idea what this is. And I didn't. First time ever I've done that. I had no idea how to write articles. I mean, my first native language is German. So trying to write in English was bizarrely complicated, but I tried it, and I got better at it over time. I never thought I would write a book, and I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea how to publish a book, and I still did. I had no idea how to do video for a course, and I never had any idea how to grow a following on Twitter. I never had any idea, and I still did it because I knew that there was opportunity for me somewhere. And at every single point of these things that I just mentioned, I felt imposter syndrome. I felt this, am I really good enough? Or is this really what I should be doing? Other people already do it so much better than I do. But I always overcame it with yes, and I'm still going to do it.
I mean, that is absolutely incredible. I mean, only imposters don't feel imposter syndrome. I absolutely love that. That is
Do
so
you feel it?
comforting.
Let me just throw this back to you. Like, do you sometimes feel it? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel imposter syndrome all the time. And yeah, I mean, it's something I've really, really struggled with. Um, but I mean, just surrounding myself with people, amazing people like you, who,
Oh.
I mean, are so encouraging and empowering. And that's my next question about, you say you empower founders. I
Mhm.
love that. And what exactly does that mean? And what are your goals using Twitter, I guess?
Well, thanks for mentioning me as one of those people around you. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And I think that's kind of at the core of why I say empowerment is one of the three things that I do. I engage with a lot of people. I try to empower and support people as much as I can. And empowerment to me is giving other people the opportunity to help themselves. It's like teach people how to fish kind of situation, right? It's giving people the power to help themselves and other people. It's kind of a meta recursive definition, because the more you empower somebody to empower others, they can empower others to empower others, and then you have this never-ending chain of people helping each other. And I think that's really what I want to do, because I've seen on Twitter, throughout my time as a software engineer, so many people, not just Twitter, also on forums like Indie Hackers and in Facebook groups on LinkedIn, wherever you go, help each other selflessly. People just going into a conversation where somebody has a problem and solving it with them, for them, and or helping them to solve it themselves, whatever it is. People take their time, their precious time, of which we all only have 24 hours in a day. No matter how like famous we are, how much money we have, or how busy we are, or whatever, right? We all have the same amount of time. But I've seen people, high profile people that have a lot of responsibilities, running businesses that make millions of dollars in a year, and they still took time to write a couple hundred words, a couple thousand words sometimes, to help somebody overcome their personal problem that they had, that is not connected to the person solving it. They just wanted to help. And I love that. As a founder, when I was building Feedback Panda with my girlfriend, our SaaS business that we sold, I benefited so incredibly much from all those people who selflessly shared their time, their knowledge, their energy, their motivation, their support, their just empowerment, the gift of making me feel like I can do this. And they gave that freely, and they gave that to me without asking for anything in return. And when we sold the business, and I was looking for meaning, because in selling the business, I also gave away my source of passion and how I could help people. Our customers were the people that I was trying to help. When I couldn't help them anymore, I needed to find somebody else to help, because it was just so awesome. Right? It's just so nice to help somebody. And if honestly, that was a problem, because you sell your business, everything is great, and now you have a totally different outlook on money and all that. But if you can't help people anymore, what's the purpose? What's your purpose, right? What is the why are you there? And I found that in helping other founders. And I at that moment I was like, okay, I have benefited so much from people sharing their knowledge and sharing their time and their energy. I want to be that now. I'm literally, sorry, I'm figuratively standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Of big, very prominent people that helped me be and become the entrepreneur that I was at that time. Now I wanted to be the person that other people could figuratively stand on my shoulder on, right? That's who I wanted to be. And that's kind of why I made everything that I did from 2019 to today about giving people opportunities to grow their own thing. I don't want to have it any I don't want this to be a transactional thing. And I'm aware that I have info products that have a price that people can buy from me in a transaction. Absolutely. There still is that. But most of the time that I spend is not trying to market my products. Most of the time that I spend is trying to help people. So in full disclosure, so that my personal brand as a selfless and helpful and supportive person keeps growing and gives people more opportunities to find me, and that I can connect with them, and we can both win, like create win-win situations at scale. That's kind of what empowerment is to me. So it's both selfless acts with a somewhat selfish or community-centric long-term perspective. Like, if I can help another person, I win too, because they will remember who helped them, and if I need something at some point, they will be there for me. Right? There is reciprocity. That's why relationships are so much better than mere transactions. Transaction, yeah, you're over. Like, you sell something to somebody, they get the thing, you get the money, done. But if you have a relationship, if you have a real and meaningful relationship with a person, there's a constant back and forth, and everybody grows, right? You grow, they teach you, you teach them, you learn from them, they learn from you. There's something mutually beneficial there. And that's why empowerment to me is creating win-win situations. It's not just making wins for myself. I don't want cheap growth hacks. I don't care about that. I want real relationships with people, because that is what ultimately, it's the tide that raises all the boats. And I want to facilitate that as much as I can. So that's why empowerment matters to me, and that's how I do it.
That's incredible. I mean, you are literally the embodiment of someone who's empowering so many people. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. The value you provide without expecting anything in return. It's so humble and selfless.
Thank you.
Final question, where can people connect or support you?
It will not surprise you that I will say Twitter at this point, like, because that is really where I have found my people. I am on Twitter at Arvid Kahl, ARVIDKAHL. Think about that for a second. And yeah, people can find me there, and all my stuff, my podcast, my blog, my newsletter, my books, my whatnot, that's all there. But like I said, I don't really care about the transactional part. I don't care if you buy my books or buy my course or visit my blog or whatnot. You can always say no to this, and I will not mind. What I want is to have a chance to build a relationship with you, with a real person that has the real interest in things that I'm also interested in. That's why Twitter is such an amazing medium, because I get to follow and interact with so many people. I think I'm following 12,000 people at this point, and my activity feed is full of awesome stuff every single day. Every hour that I refresh it, there's somebody building something cool, or somebody having a really big problem, and then I see people jump to their aid, and I see like people helping each other selflessly and with just focusing on getting this person out of a rut. It's awesome. It is the most wonderful thing to be consistently surrounded by so much support and encouragement. So come to Twitter, follow me if you want, or follow the people that I follow if you want to follow cool people too. It's just, Twitter is an amazing place for people who want to build something, a brand, a business, a reputation, an expertise, whatever. That's where I am, and that's where I would like to meet more interesting people.
Yeah, we'll put everything in the show notes. And thank you so much, Arvid, for your time. This has been absolutely incredible. I've learned so much, and I really hope the audience has too. Thank you.